November 2nd, 1932, Western Australia. 3 soldiers from the Royal Australian Artillery arrive in the small farming district of Campion with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. Their mission? Eliminate 20,000 emus destroying crops. Their opponent? Large flightless birds that can run 35 miles per hour. The result? One of the most embarrassing military defeats in modern history. This is the Great Emu War, when Australia went to war against birds and lost. After World War I ended in 1918, the Australian government gave thousands of veterans land in Western Australia to farm wheat. They called these people soldier settlers. Problem was, most had 0 farming experience, and the land was marginal. Then the Great Depression hit in 1929 and wheat prices collapsed. These struggling farmers were promised subsidies that never came. By 1932, a quarter had abandoned their land. The ones who stayed were barely hanging on. And then 20,000 emus showed up. Emus are the 2nd largest birds in the world after
ostriches. They stand about 6 feet tall, weigh over 100 pounds, and they're built like tanks. They've got powerful legs that can wreck you if they kick. They're fast, hitting speeds of 35 miles per hour, and they're tough. Emus are migratory. After breeding season in Australia's interior, they head west toward the coast looking for food
and water. This had been happening for thousands of years, but it wasn't a problem until humans started farming. The emus discovered that these farmlands were buffets: fresh wheat, water from irrigation systems, and wide open spaces. In October 1932, an estimated 20,000 emus descended on the Campion district. They trampled wheat fields, eating and destroying everything. But it wasn't just crop damage. The emus smashed through fences, creating holes that let rabbits pour in and cause more destruction. The farmers faced total economic ruin. The farmers appealed to the government for help. Because many were war veterans, they knew exactly what they wanted: machine guns. They figured thousands of large targets clustered together would be easy pickings. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce, agreed. He authorized a military operation to cull the emu population. This was the Australian military deploying actual soldiers with actual military weaponry against birds. Major Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery commanded the operation. He was joined by Sergeant McMurray and Gunner O'Halloran. They had 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds. A cinematographer from Fox Movietone tagged along to document what everyone assumed would be an easy victory. Heavy rains delayed the start until November 2nd. On that first day, the soldiers spotted about 50 emus. Local farmers tried to herd the birds into an ambush for close-range fire, but the emus didn't behave as expected. Instead of panicking and clustering, they immediately scattered in multiple directions the moment they sensed danger. Machine guns are devastating against massed targets. They're way less effective against 50 individual targets running at high speed in different directions. The soldiers killed a handful of birds, but most escaped. November 4th brought another attempt. The soldiers set up an ambush near a local dam where over 1,000 emus were heading to drink. Perfect. The emus approached in a large group, unaware of the trap. The soldiers waited until close range, then opened fire. And then one machine gun jammed after just a few shots. By the time they fixed it, the emus had scattered. The operation was already a disaster. Over the next few days, soldiers tried different tactics. They used trucks to chase emus, but the birds were too fast and maneuverable. One truck crashed after hitting an emu, showing how solid these birds are. After 6 days, they'd killed maybe 30 emus. 30 out of 20,000. They'd burned through significant ammunition. Media coverage was brutal. Newspapers mocked the military for losing to birds. Ornithologist Dominic Serventi wrote, "The machine gunners' dreams of point-blank fire into serried masses of emus were soon dissipated. The emu command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics." He described the emus as if they had a command structure employing military strategy. The embarrassment was national. On November 8th, the House of Representatives discussed the operation. The negative publicity was too much. Sir George Pierce withdrew the soldiers and equipment. Round 1 was over. The emus had won. But Major Meredith wasn't ready to admit total defeat. In his reports, he praised the emus' combat effectiveness, saying, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks." This was not the report the Defense Ministry wanted to hear. The emu problem hadn't gone away. Birds were still destroying crops. Farmers still faced ruin. Premier James Mitchell added his voice to the appeals. On November 12th, the operation was reauthorized. Meredith's team went back out on November 13th. This time, things went slightly better. Over the next few weeks, they killed around 100 emus per week. When Meredith was recalled on December 10th, he reported killing 986 emus with 9,800. 160 rounds. That's 10 bullets per confirmed kill. He claimed an additional 2,500 emus died from wounds. Most historians think these numbers were inflated to save face. Even accepting Meredith's numbers, they'd killed maybe 3,500 emus out of 20,000. The emu population was barely dented. The operation cost a fortune in ammunition, military, resources, and national pride. The emus continued thriving and destroying crops. By any measure, the Great Emu War was a complete failure. Australia had lost a war to flightless birds. The story spread internationally. By December, British newspapers reported Australia's humiliating defeat. Some conservationists protested the operation, though emus were quite common. The whole thing became a joke. In 1934, 1943, and 1948, farmers again requested military assistance. Each time, the government refused. They'd learned their lesson. Instead, the government relied on a bounty system established in 1923. Farmers claimed a bounty for every emu killed. This actually worked. In just 6 months during 1934, over 57,000 emu bounties were claimed. Local farmers with rifles, who knew the terrain and could hunt patiently, were way more effective than soldiers with machine guns fighting a pitched battle. The government also invested in exclusion fencing. The state barrier fence, originally built to keep rabbits out, was extended to block emu migration routes. This fence eventually stretched over 1,200 kilometers.
It was more effective than the military operation, but modern ecologists note it disrupts natural wildlife movements. The Great Emu War teaches important lessons. First, nature doesn't care about human plans. The emus were just migrating to find food and water. The fact that humans farmed in their migration path was irrelevant. Second, overwhelming firepower doesn't guarantee victory.
The military had machine guns, unlimited ammunition, and trained soldiers. The emus had speed, instinct, and the ability to scatter. The emus won. Third, sometimes solving a problem requires understanding it, not just throwing force at it. The bounty system worked better because it incentivized patient, localized efforts rather than fighting a conventional battle against an unconventional enemy.
The Great Emu War has become permanent Australian folklore. It's taught in schools, referenced in popular culture, and serves as a humorous reminder that humans aren't always at the top of the food chain. There are books, documentaries, and countless internet discussions about this absurd episode. The emus are doing fine. Their population is strong, with over 600,000 wild emus across Australia, now protected under environmental law. Emus serve important ecological functions. They're opportunistic feeders who disperse seeds over vast distances as they migrate, helping regenerate vegetation across the continent. In Indigenous Australian culture, emus hold spiritual significance as creator beings, represented in Aboriginal astronomy as a constellation formed from dark nebulae between Scorpius.
And the Southern Cross. These birds aren't random pests. They're vital to Australia's ecosystem and cultural identity. The Great Emu War remains one of the most bizarre military operations in history. It's a story about desperation, economic hardship, government incompetence, and underestimating nature. It's also about resilience, both of the farmers who persevered and the emus who refused to be defeated by machine guns. The story reminds us that sometimes the most absurd-sounding stories are completely true. Australia really deployed its military against birds. The birds really won. And that's a historical fact that will never stop being funny. The emus fought. The emus conquered. And the emus are still out there doing exactly what they